Welcome to Inspiration and Transformation from the Banks of the Ganga with Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati, an American sannyasi living at the Parmarth Niketan ashram in Rishikesh, India. Sadhvi is president of the Divine Shakti Foundation, a charitable organization bringing education, vocational training, upliftment, and empowerment programs to women and children. Sadhvi is also Secretary General of the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance and Director of the world-famous International Yoga Festival. Join the musings of an American sannyasi as Sadhvi shares the wisdom and teachings of her guru, His Holiness Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji.
Welcome everyone to Inspiration and Transformation from the holy banks of the sacred Ganga River in the land of Rishikesh, India. In short, for those of you who didn't hear it all, it's a question about the role of women and femininity in the Hindu, Buddhist, Jain traditions and teachings of Prakriti and Purusha, and this idea that Purusha is that which ends up enlightened and Prakriti is that which is here and it's feminine. And so as women, essentially, is there any hope for us to be enlightened? So first of all, there's a big difference between a woman's body, a man's body, and masculine and feminine energies. We all have both energies in our bodies. So first of all, realize that in your woman's body, you have the energy of divine feminine, and you have the energy of divine masculine. Sometimes there are these beautiful paintings or deities that you see. I actually have a beautiful one in my room that's Krishna and Radha, but they're merging into one. It's sort of half and half as one. But even to the extent in which like one side is Radha's body, but then her arm is coming out from this side of Krishna's body. So it's one being, both energies. And we speak about this a lot. So that's important to realize also, is that there's a whole spiritual tradition of the energies both coming together. Now, yes, Prakriti is the feminine energy, as is Shrishti, as is Shakti, which to me is really beautiful because Prakriti, Sanskrit is so deep and full and has so many meanings, but we translate Prakriti frequently as nature. We translate Shrishti usually as creation. And Shakti, of course, is the power through which creation is created, through which nature is created. And to me, that's very beautiful, that feminine energy is the power of that which is, and the energy through which it is made manifest. Purusha is seen much more as the unmanifest, which is why there's this metaphor of a rider and a horse. Meaning the unmanifest gets associated for a certain period of time with the manifest for this particular journey. But that's the same thing as saying your soul and your body. Your spirit, this is a metaphor to understand soul and body. Your soul, your spirit, we'll call it Purusha. You could also call it Atma. Has no form, is formless, is infinite, temporarily gets associated with a form, a prakriti, nature. This is nature. This is made up of the 5 elements. It's essentially just like this tree. It's nature. They get associated temporarily for this particular journey that my soul, my jivatma, is undertaking. But that doesn't mean that my jivatma is masculine. The jivatma has no gender. It's not a sense of the feminine part of you stays and the masculine part of you goes. Or if you are here in a female body, your soul is somehow more stuck than if you were here in a male body. No. At the risk of running contrary to those who have said the things that you've quoted, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. It's not my experience. And it's not the experience of so many enlightened female. I mean, look at Mirabai. Okay? Let's not even look at like Sita and Radha, who are scriptural beings, and there could even be a debate about, what their form. Let's not even go there. Let's look purely historically. Let's just take Mirabai. Female body. Not just enlightenment, but such complete moksha that her physical body also just merged. Not only the soul, but the physical body itself, the prakriti of her itself, essentially everything other than her shoes, I think, merged straight into Bhagavan Krishna. Right? I mean, she enters the temple. The one that had become 2 becomes 1. So if there's ever a doubt, you just look at that. I mean, there was such a moksha that it's not just, the soul merges. The body merges. It's like the whole full package deal of her. Every bit of her. The tangible, the intangible, the masculine energies, the feminine energies. That which was eternal, that which she had put on that morning. Merged straight into the divine. So do not think for a moment, not even a moment, that you are somehow lesser than, disqualified in any way. Don't think like that at all. It absolutely is not true. I can't explain why it would have been said other than for the reasons that there's so much that we know has been said in the history of religion that has nothing to do with God and everything to do with socializing societies the way we want them to be socialized, keeping people in order. And so we say, well, God says. It has nothing to do with God. And everything to do with agendas of some people and some traditions to keep certain orders and hierarchies and roles in society. Yeah, you've got full power, full potential. and with full devotion. It's there for you. But I would say at the same time as you work for total moksha, we all, both women and men, but as someone in a woman's body, I speak from that. There's such a beautiful opportunity in the body before we drop the body, while we're in it, to use this body as a gift of bringing love, of bringing caring, of bringing service, of bringing joy to so many. So work for that complete liberation, that complete moksha. But not after you've dropped your female body, but while you're still in it. Look at Ananda Mahima, right? I mean, just look locally. Look recently. We don't even have to go back as far as Mirabai and Rajasthan. Look locally. Look at Ananda Mahima. Right? I mean, there's so many. So yes, it's very much there for you.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Om Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going Om. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out, and for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Inspiration and Transformation. I'm so glad to have you all back here with me. First of all, it's important to realize that path in life and career are not actually synonyms of each other. For some people, they may be. For some people, there may be a sense, my dharma is to heal. I'm going to become a doctor. And that's just what I want to do, and it's who I am, and every minute of my life I will be fulfilling this dharma. For some, they may feel like my dharma is to teach, to be with children, and they will go and get a degree in teaching, and they will start teaching children in school, and that will be their life's work. And for some people, the two things overlap. But for the vast, overwhelming majority of people, they don't. And that's okay. But it's important for us as parents, as grandparents, as mentors, as aunts, as uncles, as friends, to not confuse them into thinking that in selecting a career, they are simultaneously having to choose a path of life. Because choosing a path of life is huge. I mean, at 20, 21, 22, who in the world knows what path of life they want to take? And it's difficult for the older generations because with each generation, our possible choices increase. If I think about my grandmother, for example, I don't think she ever went through a sort of identity crisis of what do I want to do, what is my purpose, what is my passion. You don't hear about people my grandmother's age having those sorts of dilemmas. You just did what everybody did. You got married. And in general, the men went out and they had some kind of a job doing whatever they happened to be skilled in doing. And they put food on the table, and the women had kids and they kept the home. And I'm not saying that that was some kind of an ideal, but it just was what was standard at that time. Even my mother's generation, as women started working, there still was a sense of, you're going to get a degree and you'll get a job, but it didn't carry that weight of, it must be my purpose, it must be my passion, it must be my everything. It was just, what seems interesting to me? What's a good way to make a living? What do I have skills in? It was much more simple. This particular generation is a generation in which not only are they creating jobs. I mean, even when I was in my 20s, there still was a sense of what do you want to be, and here were all of your options. Now, it's not a matter of choose your box. Now everyone is sort of inventing their own career. I mean, the tech revolution, between actual computers and programming and coding and technology to social media and influencing and all of that, has literally created a situation where kids are asking themselves, what career am I going to invent for myself, rather than what box am I going to walk into? And that's a much bigger, much more confusing situation than has ever existed in history. So I think it's really important for us to recognize that and to have compassion for that, but also to help them understand. You know, your passion, your purpose, your dharma may not necessarily be the way you bring home the money to put on the table. You may end up having a passion and a dharma that's something completely different from actually what you get up every day and do at work to feed your family and send your kids to school and have a roof over your head, and that's okay. They're now in this illusion that somehow when I find my purpose, it's going to not only fill me and fulfill me totally and completely, but it's also going to pay the bills and give me a lot of income. And those two things don't necessarily go together. And one of the pieces of advice that I give to a lot of young people is, you don't even know where the world is going to be 10 years from now. You have no idea that the skill you're learning today or a degree you're getting today is going to have any relevance 10 years from now, because that is how fast our world is changing in terms of what's needed. Don't worry about what you're going to do forever. Worry about, number one, getting out of your parents' house so that there's a degree of personal responsibility. That it's not a matter that your parents can't retire because you are still living at home trying, waiting for your purpose to land in your lap. Take personal responsibility. And it may be something as boring as waiting tables. And that's fine. Because your purpose will land in your lap even if you're waiting tables. It's not that you have to sit at home and wait for it to happen. Get out of the house, do something, start somewhere, put one foot in front of the other, but do so with an open mind, with the awareness that I'm walking down this path right now, fully open to the fact that this path may show me an open door here and I'm going to walk through it. And I'm going to realize that my life is about learning, expanding, and giving and serving. And some of that's going to bring home income, some of it's not. And that's okay. But it doesn't all have to come together in one career. There's going to be aspects of my life that fulfill me deeply. They may not be what I get paid to do. And that's okay. So give them some encouragement to just start somewhere. Just start putting one foot in front of the other. There's no pressure that they've got to do it for the next 40 years. Let them stay open. Let them stay courageous. Let them keep learning from life. Keep exploring things. Stay open. But they need to start putting one foot in front of the other. That it's not a matter of just wait until it lands in your lap. And they may need some help in terms of structuring deadlines and parameters, because the dilemma these days with the online world is they go online to research one thing they're interested in. 6 weeks later, they emerge with, 100 new things that they found when they went to just look at one thing. And I think they do need a little bit of guidance from us. Not to suffocate them, not to thwart them, not in any way to discourage them, to give them the full flexibility, but to help them say, okay, by Friday, you're going to choose one thing. I don't care which one it is. By Friday, one thing. And you're going to start it. And if after you've started it and you've done it for a minimum of, say, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it may be, should something else open and you want to walk in that way, no problem. I will support you. But by Friday, you're going to choose one thing and you're going to start. And you may not say Friday, you may say 3 months from now. You may say January 1st of next year. Choose your deadline. It should depend, obviously, on how old they are, how long they've been in this phase. If they just graduated university, give them some time. But if they've been sitting at home for 3 years, waiting for their purpose to fall in their lap, give them, a shorter deadline. And just a little bit of kind of a gentle push off the diving board into the swimming pool, because they can swim. And even though they can't figure out which dive to do off the board, they're going to figure it out the moment they're off the board. And just a little bit of a gentle, here you are into the universeness. And they'll pick it up from there. It's just really easy these days to get paralyzed in far too many options, far too many possibilities. I mean, it's literally an infinite situation. You know I have a much milder case of it, but I think it's a similar experience where here at the ashram, nobody ever asks, what do you want to eat for food? In 26 years I've lived here, I can't think of one time that the cook has said to me, like, what would you like for dinner? I mean, he just cooks and then you eat. If I'm eating out, which I almost never ever do, but if I'm traveling and I'm at some conference or summit or something, as a very, very strict vegan when I'm traveling, I usually only have one or most maybe two options on a menu, so it's very easy to choose what I want because there's only one or two options. When I'm back in LA, where my parents live, there's a restaurant that's the only place I'll go to there, and it's my favorite place. It's this place a few blocks from my parents' house that is 100% organic and 100% vegan. But the problem is every single time I go there, I have this almost mild panic attack every time I pick up the menu because it's 70 different things I could eat. And for the life of me, I can never figure out what I want to eat. So I literally end up eating the same thing every single time I go there. Because the idea of I'm going to try to figure out what it's going to be like with this one or that one, it's just so much easier to choose one thing. But I know that feeling that the kids have when I walk into that restaurant and I pick up a menu with 70 options. Because you think, my God, I have no idea. I mean, this could be good, that could be good, but if I eat this, then I can't eat that. And they're dealing with this for their whole lives. I've only got to choose dinner. So we need to have a little bit of compassion for that also, but also be the metaphoric waiter who essentially says, you've got 30 seconds and I'm walking over to the next table. Like, decide right now or you're eating what I bring you. And just help catalyze that for them.
The Real Conscious Connection. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing
a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. How is it that when I make a promise to myself, I just can't seem to keep it? So we're all motivated in different ways. And in order to keep promises to ourselves, we have to understand what motivates us. So for example, let's say that my doctor tells me I should lose weight. It's World Health Day, so we'll take a health example. Let's say my doctor tells me I should lose weight. My cholesterol's too high, my weight's too much, I should go on a diet. So I walk out of the doctor's office and I make a promise to myself, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to cut out the sweets. I'm going to cut out the fried foods. I'm going to start exercising. I will lose weight. But until and unless inside of me there is a belief that there is a problem, and B, an actual urge to fix the problem. There has to be both. I'm not going to stick to that promise or resolution for very long. I mean, we see how many people actually hold on to New Year's resolutions after, like Jan 10th, Jan 15th. First week of the new year, everybody's, at the gym, eating salad and whatnot. By middle of the month, it's over. Why? Well, for some of us, it's because we don't actually believe it. We feel okay inside. The dilemma with things like cholesterol is you don't actually feel different. It's not like you feel like there's something wrong with you when you have high cholesterol. Until your diabetes is off the charts, in many cases you wouldn't notice that either. Most of that which kind of goes wrong with the physical body, we don't notice it very much. And so the dilemma is that even though the doctor says it's a problem, if I don't actually believe it, I'm not going to do something about it for very long. I feel like, I'm okay. I feel okay. There's no problem. And oh my God, those French fries look so good. Anyway, what's the problem with one piece of pizza? I'm fine. Look at me. I'm fine. Okay. So, number one, we don't believe it. And number two, in a lot of cases, we're really just not motivated to make a change. And this is the dilemma. And so you have to really understand, if you want to make a change in your life, you have to understand what actually motivates you. What are the sorts of things that motivate you? Some of us are what we call intrinsically motivated. That from within me, there is a sense of duty or responsibility or motivation or inspiration that even if no one outside ever said anything, I would know this is my responsibility to do, I will do it. This is the right thing to do, I will do it. This is a healthy thing to do, I will do it. And when we don't live up to it, inside ourselves, it doesn't feel good. So if you're intrinsically motivated, chances are you are going to keep promises to yourself. If you notice that you are not keeping them, then it means it's very likely that you are externally motivated, but that you haven't yet given yourself that external motivation. And this is where it's really helpful to speak that promise to someone else. So if I knew that I were externally motivated, on the way home from my doctor's office, I would put out a big Facebook post that says, my doctor says I need to lose weight. Here's all of the things I'm going to do to lose weight. I'm cutting out sugar. I'm cutting out fried food. I'm going to exercise every day. If you ever see me with a donut or a cookie, grab it out of my hands. Right? I would put that out to as many people as I could if I knew that I was someone who was externally motivated. Because now there's a sense of, oh my God, what if somebody at the bakery saw my Facebook post? That would be really embarrassing. It's also where accountability buddies come in. If you're externally motivated and you've decided you're going to exercise every day, make sure you've got an exercise buddy or a group of buddies. Go jogging together. Meet up at the gym together. Because you're much more likely to show up if your friends are waiting for you than if no one is waiting for you, assuming you are externally motivated. Some of us are motivated by what we call a carrot, and some of us are motivated by what we call a stick, meaning fear or reward. So for some of us, it's a sense of, oh, if I get in shape and lose weight, I will look really good in my bikini this year at the beach. That's the carrot approach. Fear is, oh my God, if I don't get in shape, I'm going to have a heart attack and die. Or just, I'm going to look awful in my bikini and everybody's going to laugh at me and I'm going to be so embarrassed that nobody will talk to me at the beach. Either way. But this is where knowing yourself is really important. Are you a carrot person or a stick person? And if you don't know yet, try them both. So for example, say to yourself, every time I make it through a day without eating sugar or fried foods or whatever you've decided you're going to do, give yourself a reward. Take 10 rupees, 50 rupees, 100 rupees, $5. Stick it in a piggy bank that's going to go towards something that you really want. That vacation you want to take, the stereo system you want to buy, whatever it is. But it's a reward. And if you find that you're more of the fear-based person, every time you do eat sugar, or do eat fried foods, or don't exercise, you take that money and give it away to somebody else. Use techniques. Techniques that work. There's some research actually that shows that if you can get people to have to donate money to some cause that they don't believe in. So in America, for example, if you're a Democrat, you've got to donate money to the Republican Party or vice versa. If you don't do what you've promised you're going to do. So before you start, you make a commitment. Every time I eat this sugar or the fried foods or don't exercise or I smoke or I don't meditate, I mean, depending on what your promise is. Every time I'm unfaithful to my spouse, every time I tell a lie. Whatever habit it is you're trying to bring in or change, think of some organization or some person you really don't like. And then commit that every time you do that or don't do it, you've got to donate X amount of money to that person or to that organization. You can come up with all sorts of creative ways for the carrot and for the stick. But this is where it helps to know, are you internally, intrinsically motivated or extrinsically motivated? And then work with that. But here's the dilemma on a serious note. If I make a commitment that I'm going to get up and meditate every day, and I don't do it, two things happen. Number one, I lose the benefit of meditation. Okay. But number two, something actually even more dangerous and harmful happens. I start to identify myself as the type of person who doesn't do what I say I'm going to do. And that is a really dangerous self-identification. Because then I'm not going to do anything I say. If I start to say, yeah, I always promise I'm going to get up to meditate. I never do. I never keep my promises, I never fulfill what I say I'm going to do, then you lose the opportunity to actually ever make change in your life. Because immediately that voice in the head says, you're not going to do it. You're not the type of person who makes changes. You're not the type of person who does what you say you're going to do. So that's actually even more damaging than simply not getting the benefit of meditation. So this is where we also have to be really clear and careful about what promises are we making. Are we making promises that we can keep? I mean, if I'm someone who never exercises, and I make a commitment that I'm going to start running 5 miles a day, and that I'm going to run a marathon by next weekend, it's really likely that I'm just not going to do that. That when tomorrow morning rolls around and I know I've got to get out and run 5 miles, my mind is just going to say, forget it, hit the snooze button. But instead, if I make a commitment that I'm going to start running 3 days a week, a mile at a time or half a mile at a time, I'm going to run for 10 minutes a day, 3 days a week for the first month. Then I'm going to build it up to 20 minutes at a time. And I'm going to start doing things slowly. If I never meditate, and I sleep in till, 9, 10 o'clock every morning, and suddenly I say, from tomorrow, I'm going to get up at 4 and I'm going to meditate for 2 hours every morning. It's really unlikely I'm going to do it. Not impossible. If you really want to do it, I would suggest you get yourself to a meditation retreat where somebody comes along with a bell in your face at 4 a.m. every day to make sure you get up. But instead of that, do something reasonable. Do something that you can do. I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock and I'm going to meditate for 5 minutes this month. Next month, I'll start getting up at 6:30 and I'll meditate for 10 minutes. And over the course of a year, you've gotten yourself to actually get up at Brahma Muhurt and to have a deeper meditation practice. But you've done it slowly in a way where you actually get the benefits of it and your self-identity says, I'm somebody who does what I say I'm going to do. So start small so that you can build up the identity of knowing I keep my promises. Don't make promises you're not going to keep. Wait till you're ready to keep them and then make it. Because otherwise you damage your entire sense of self and you put yourself on a whole path of living a life in which you never transform. So start small, it's okay. There's no race. Bite off as much as you can chew. Develop that confidence and have your buddies, have your accountability system, publicly tell it to people. Use your carrots and sticks and you'll start keeping them. Tell yourself, I want to be someone I can trust. That's really important. We all should be someone who we can trust. If you can't trust yourself, that's a really difficult position to live in, because then you're going to bed with someone you don't trust. I mean, who wants to get in bed with someone you don't trust? Who wants to get in the shower with someone you don't trust? Who wants to spend 24 hours a day with someone you don't trust? So start to live in such a way that you trust yourself. That in and of itself will transform you.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose. to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. The majority of victims know their attacker. It could be your friend, your neighbor, or someone you met at a party. If you said no, it's rape, and it's a crime. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. Call the National Sexual Assault Hotline today at 1-800-656-HOPE or visit rain.org. That's RAINN.org.
Brought to you by RAIN and this station.
Welcome back. This is Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati with inspiration and transformation. This is true for when anyone upsets you. It's obviously harder, it hurts more when it's a loved one, because we expect more from a loved one than we do from a random person on the street. If you're walking down the street and a random person starts shouting obscenities at you, you're going to think, oh, the guy or the lady is drunk or psychotic or, some problem is going on with them. You're not going to take it personally. But when a loved one does it, we take things really personally. But the teaching is the same, which is no one wakes up in the morning and says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to hurt him gravely, seriously, or just a little bit. I'm going to make his day ruined. I'm going to ruin his life. I'm going to bring him misery. No one plans like that. Every single person is doing the very best they can do with the toolkit they have been given. When a situation arises in our life, we turn to the toolkit we have. And if the situation requires patience, love, understanding, generosity, compassion, and we don't have any of that in our toolkit. Instead, we've got impatience and anger and greed. Well, that's exactly what we're going to use in the situation. Not because we were trying to make a mess of things, but simply because that's all we've got. Even if you study the people we would consider crazy people, evil people, mass murderers, like the worst of the worst, none of them says, I did what I did because I wanted to bring misery to these 6 people or 60 people or 6 million people. They've all got some story, some reason that by their limited, diminished, impaired mental capacity, that was the thing to do. So even those who belong locked up in jail for the rest of their lives, I'm pretty vehemently against the death penalty, but if I weren't the sort of people you would say, those who should be put to death. But in my view, those who should be behind bars forever, even those didn't wake up in the morning and say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to wreak havoc on the lives of otherwise good people. Today is the day I'm going to bring misery. So if that's true about the Charles Mansons and Adolf Hitlers of the world, Certainly it's true about your family members. They're doing the best they can with a very limited, in some cases very warped, toolbox and vision. A, they don't necessarily even know what the moment requires because their vision is warped. And B, even if they could see what the moment requires, they don't have it. And so in their blindness and their lack of proper tools, they move through the world causing pain. But you've got a toolbox that's got understanding, that's got compassion, that's got wisdom, that's got introspection. Use them to realize it's not about me. Someone else's toolbox is not my karmic dilemma. That's their karmic story. I am responsible for my journey. So if they hurt you, let it, when I was a kid at summer camp, there was a game we used to play in a lake. The summer camp was on a lake. And there was a game we used to play where they would take a watermelon and they would cover the watermelon with something called Crisco, which is it's like margarine. Okay, so it's some kind of synthetic fat, like butter, but not made from milk. Oily, fatty substance. And they would cover the watermelon with it. And the kids would be in two teams. And it was basically like a water version of soccer, football, basketball. I mean, any of these games where you need to carry a ball from one end of the court to the other end of the court. But imagine being in the water and trying to grab hold of a watermelon that has been covered in greasy fat, right? You grab it and then it goes, and it's right out from under you. And then somebody else grabs it and it's right out. And you spend all this time trying to grab hold of it. And you can't. And in the same way, as they are moving through their karmic experience, they're not able to skillfully, successfully address the situations at hand. Like kids in a lake with, their stuff on them. But then the question for us, going with the same metaphor, is, can you imagine yourself with a layer of, let's call it not, grimy Crisco, but let's call it pure ghee. Could you imagine yourself covered with pure, beautiful ghee in such a way that whatever happened to you just slid off of you? That you were covered like from a yagna ceremony, like we offer ghee into the fire, that you were covered with this beautiful, pure, sacred ghee, such that whatever is said to you, it doesn't go inside. It slides off. And that would be a really nice metaphor to try to move through your day with, of recognizing they're doing the best they can with very faulty tools and blurred vision. But I've got this beautiful layer of ghee over me so that whatever they say or does, it just slides right off me. And the last piece about it, which isn't so easy when it's family members, but when it's others in the world, is just because someone's not trying to cause you pain doesn't mean that you need to keep putting yourself in their path. If someone's sick, they've got a cold, a flu, COVID, whatever it may be, and they're coughing and they're sneezing. Now, they're not trying to make you sick. They didn't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to go out and cough all over everybody and make them sick. So you're not going to hate them or feel horrible about it. But on the other hand, you're going to recognize that isn't a healthy situation for me to stand very close. Because they're sick and it's contagious. And I don't want it. And so to the extent that you can, distance yourself, not just emotionally and spiritually, but also physically. Can you extricate yourself from situations in which these family members are going to be there? And sometimes we can't. Sometimes we're living under the same roof. And that's where we move through the world covered with a lot of ghee. And we keep chanting our mantra inside of us, and we do a lot of meditation and a lot of yoga. We make sure we are not on the work from home scheme, that we've got somewhere to get up and go every day. And we start putting in overtime and coming home later. But to the extent that you can, distance yourself physically from it as well. You've got to take care of yourself. When we talk about compassion, it's not just for others, it's for yourself as well. So have that compassion for yourself too. This brings to a close this hour of inspiration and transformation. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm so glad to be together with you all each week. And I look forward to being together again next Thursday, same time on Om Times Radio.